On March 17th, 2021, citizens of the Netherlands, not just Holland, are heading to the polls to elect the 150 members of the lower chamber of their parliament, the second chamber. Now, first we should note that the Netherlands has one of the lowest entry thresholds of any country. A party only needs to achieve 0.67% of the votes to secure at least one seat in parliament. This can create a bit of a mess, since many small parties can enter parliament with a minuscule number of seats. Now, before we dive into the parties, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and click on the bell icon to get notified every time we publish a new video. If you want to support this citizen-run project, please consider donating to our Patreon, linked in the description below. Now, let's have a look at the parties running in this election. Volksparty voor Vrijheid en Democratie, or People's Party for Freedom and Democracy in English, is a liberal party in the Netherlands, which has been the largest party in each of the Netherlands' 3 most recent elections. Leader Mark Rutte has been head of government as well as the European Council member of the Netherlands since 2010. This party is more socially conservative and economically right-wing than D66, the country's other main liberal party. VVD is a continuation of the Liberal Union founded in 1885. After the Second World War in 1946, it joined with the center-left Labour Party, PVDA, in an effort to break with the so-called pillarized sociopolitical landscape in the Netherlands. Society was largely segregated between Protestants, Catholics, Socialists, and Liberals. However, in 1946, the Liberals left PVDA over a conflict on economic policy, creating their own Liberal Party, this time under the name of VVD. Due to these differences with the PVDA and their new status as the main party for voters on the right of Dutch politics, the Liberals merely governed as a junior coalition partner to the Christian Democrats, the CDA. In the 1990s, VVD took a historic step and governed with the center-left PVDA and the liberal D66 in the so-called purple governments, referring to the mixture of the 2 main parties' colors. After these successive governments, the party found itself split between the more progressive camp, led by Mark Rutte, and the more conservative camp, led by Rita Verdonk. Rutte won out in this power struggle, but suffered a decisive electoral defeat in 2006. However, he later led the VVD in the 2010 elections, in which they became the largest party of the second chamber. In effect, Mark Rutte became the first liberal prime minister since the First World War. Rutte himself is known for his flexibility and his ability to work with a wide range of parties, from the right-wing PVV to the center-left PVDA. Rutte's third government coalition, which lasted from 2017 until its collapse in January 21, included the CDA, D66, and the Christian Union. As a party, the VVD focuses on 3 main issues: free market economics, a minimal welfare state, and security. Rutte and his party want to reduce taxes for businesses and middle-class individuals, decrease reliance on social benefits, and impose more severe sentences for terrorists and drug-related criminals. The party also sees the need to increase the minimum wage and invest in the public sector. Furthermore, the Liberals propose to construct more roads. Fun fact, VVD is also known as the Vroom Vroom Party. They would also invest in nuclear energy, increase the defense budget to the 2% of GDP, NATO standard, and penalize illegal immigration. On matters of Europe, VVD opposes further enlargement of the European Union and is not so keen on further EU integration, stating that the Union's main reason for existing is to ensure free trade and little else. Furthermore, the party is open to creating a smaller Schengen zone with neighboring countries in case of a renewed migration crisis. Current Prime Minister Mark Rutte will once again lead the VVD. He's the first ever Prime Minister from the party and has been in office since 2010, leading 3 different governments along the way. Over the course of his political career, he served as a member of the House of Representatives from 2003 to 2010, with interruptions in 2004 to 2006, when he served as secretary under the Ministry of Social Affairs and Employment and then the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. VVD is a member of the Renew Europe European Parliamentary Group as well as the ALDE Party. In 1976, they were among the founding members of the Federation of Liberal and Democratic Parties in Europe, the first ever iteration of the current RE group. Partij voor de Vrijheid, or PVV, known as the Party for Freedom in English, is a right-wing party. This party is unique, even among others in the world, for having only one member officially, its founder, Geert Wilders. He created the party after leaving the VVD in 2004 over its positive stance towards Turkish accession to the European Union. The reason why there are no other party members is that political parties receive state funding based on the number of party members in its roster. Because Wilders is fundamentally against this practice, he named himself the only official member of the PVV party and receives as minimal an amount of public money as possible. Now, other people can run on his lists, but as associates rather than party members. In effect, this also gives Wilders complete control over the decisions the party makes, and even though there have been deserters in the past, this tactic hasn't really weakened his political influence. For much of its history, parties ruled out working with Wilders' PVV, with the exception of Rutte's first government in 2010, in which the VVD and CDA had a confidence and supply agreement with the PVV. However, this cooperation was loose and short-lived. In 2012, Wilders ended his support for the government, leading to its collapse. Since then, almost every party has ruled out working with the PVV. In the economic sphere, the party supports a mix of economic liberalism, but with a sizable welfare system in certain areas. The party wants to reduce income and fuel taxes while also eliminating so-called green taxes and restrictions on the construction of coal and nuclear power plants. However, they're also in favor of reducing rent prices and increasing public spending on housing development, defense and police, elderly care, and overall healthcare. Things like arts, television, energy development, and foreign aid, however, should be cut from the budget, in their opinion. The party also supports leaving the euro currency behind and returning to the use of the guilder, the currency the Netherlands had prior to 2002. Socially, PVV represents a kind of balance of some liberal and some very conservative policies. The party actually defends LGBT rights and does not seek to criminalize recreational drug use. However, they stand as staunch conservatives when defending Dutch culture, traditions, festivities, and most notably, Black Pete. On a larger scale, the party is against Islam, considering it to be a political ideology more than a religion, and wants to ban Islamic schools and mosques. The party also promises to create a ministry of remigration and de-Islamization, ban headscarves in public buildings, and abolish voting rights for people with dual citizenship. The party is also known as one of the most anti-EU voices, wanting to leave the Union and abstain from cooperating in any field which would compromise Dutch sovereignty, in their view. They also want to increase the use of referenda as a way to validate or reject legislation. Geert Wilders, as previously stated, is the sole member of the party and is therefore its leader. He was a member of the VVD, originally elected as a councilman for Utrecht, and then a member of parliament, a position he holds to this day. In 2003, he was appointed VVD's parliamentary spokesperson and gained national recognition for his positions against Islam and Turkey's integration into the EU. He was eventually kicked out of the VVD and founded his current party soon afterwards. Wilders also runs at the head of the party's Senate and European election lists, but he never takes those seats allocated to the PVV. PVV does not belong to any European political party. The party, however, associates and frequently collaborates with the ID European Party. PVV was a non-inscrit for a long time before becoming a founding member of the ENF group and subsequent ID group. Christen-Democratische Appel, or Christian Democratic Appeal, is a center-right political party and the biggest Christian Democratic Party in the Netherlands. This party is sort of a merger between three historical Christian Democratic parties, the Catholic People's Party, the Protestant Anti-Revolutionary Party, and the Christian Historic Union. These parties ran together on one list in the 1977 parliamentary elections and finalized their merger in 1980. CDA and its Christian Democratic predecessors have long been the most dominant in Dutch politics. Since World War I, the Christian Democrats have been in government the entire time, with the exception of a 13-year hiatus over the course of the century. Now, the reason behind CDA's dominance is its more centrist position in the Dutch political spectrum, which pretty much allows the party to join almost any coalition. For decades, the party and its predecessors have governed to the left of the VVD or to the right of the PVDA in their respective coalition governments. Ironically, it was when the PVDA and the VVD governed together in 1994, despite their differences on economic policy, that the CDA's dominance in Dutch politics came to an end. The party managed to retake the premiership 8 years later under the leadership of Jan-Peter Balkenende. His premiership ended in 2010, when the VVD's Mark Rutte became prime minister with CDA as his party's junior partner. This government had a confidence and supply agreement with the right-wing PVV, which was seen as highly controversial within the CDA and led to quite a few internal conflicts. In the 2012 election, after the cooperation agreement with the PVV failed, the CDA suffered a historic defeat. In 2017, the CDA entered another government led by Mark Rutte, along with the liberal D66 and the Christian Union. In the current election, the CDA hopes to retake a leading role in government under the leadership of popular finance minister Wopke Hoekstra. An important part of its political identity, the CDA considers itself to be a strong advocate for rural interests. The party wants to invest in public transportation and strengthen local hospitals in less densely populated areas, while introducing an electoral system based on regional districts instead of a single national district, as is the case now. The Christian Democrats also promised to curb profit-making in the healthcare sector, lower taxes for the middle class, and reintroduce financial aid for university students. On ethical issues, CDA opposes legalization of any drugs and will try to make marijuana shops in the Netherlands, quote, go extinct. Furthermore, the party wants to increase social cohesion in society by proposing conscription for young adults to do social work, for example at elderly care homes. They also support increased education on Dutch cultural history. Regarding the European Union, CDA is not so keen to see further EU integration. For example, they oppose Eurobonds and only favor decision-making with unanimous support from member states. However, the party also believes that the EU should play a larger role on issues such as the production of medication. As mentioned before, Wopke Hoekstra will lead the CDA. Long associated with the powerful CDA chapter in Amsterdam, he was originally a prominent figure in the private sector. In 2011, he was elected to the Senate as its youngest member and served until 2017, when he joined the third Rutte cabinet as its Minister of Finance. A founding member of the European People's Party, CDA belongs to both the EPP group in the European Parliament and its parent political party. D66, translated to Democrats 66 in English, is a liberal political party. This party is socially more liberal and economically more left-wing than the other major liberal party, the VVD. D66 was founded, as you might have guessed, in 1966 by journalists Hans van Mierlo and Hans Greuters. The party sought to radically change the political system in the Netherlands, introducing elements of direct democracy, advocating for ethically progressive issues like the legalization of abortion and euthanasia, and aiming to end the pillarized society segregated between Catholics, Protestants, Socialists, and Liberals. In 1994, D66 saw their best ever electoral result and managed to realize one of its goals, ending the dominance of the CDA in Dutch politics. Functioning as a mediator and power broker, the party succeeded in getting the center-left PVDA and liberal VVD together in one government for 8 years. In coalition, D66 accomplished several progressive reforms. The Netherlands became the first country in the world to legalize euthanasia and introduce same-sex marriage. However, D66 failed to profit electorally from its 3-time stint in government during the 1990s and 2000s. D66 fell to only 2% of the vote in 2006's parliamentary elections. After that record low, D66 slowly recovered under the leadership of Alexander Pechtold, who led the party until 2018. The party received its second highest election result ever in 2017 and entered the third Rutte government with the liberal VVD, center-right CDA, and Christian Union. D66 styles itself as the party of education, wanting to invest significantly in schools and innovation, make childcare free, and increase teachers' wages. The party supports a mixed economy with a flexible labor market and lower taxes for middle-class incomes, with moderate economic regulations in place. On democratic reform, the party wants to overhaul the parliamentary system so that the prime minister is directly elected by the people. Furthermore, the party promises to have cut 30% of the usage of natural resources by 2025. D66 also advocates rooting out systemic racism from the Dutch government institutions and resettling a greater number of refugees via the UNHCR to the Netherlands. D66 also happens to be the most pro-European party in the Dutch parliament, advocating for a single European defense force, a form of a common European unemployment insurance, and Dutch membership of the EU being written in its constitution. Sigrid Kaag will be the party's leader. She's a career diplomat who worked in the United Nations from the mid-90s. There she handled matters in the Middle East, specifically Lebanon and Syria. In 2017, she was appointed Minister of Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation, and serves that role to this day. For the first 2 European Parliament terms, D66 was actually a non-inscrit. In 1989, however, they joined the European Liberal Democrats and Reformists group. Since then, they have remained members until this day and enjoy membership in the Renew Europe group and ALDE party. GreenLinks, or the Green Left in English, is, as its name would suggest, a green party on the left wing of the Dutch party landscape. This party was originally conceived as a parliamentary alliance that consisted of the Communist Party, the anti-nuclear pacifist Socialist Party, and the Green Political Party of the Radicals, as well as the progressive CDA splinter party, the Evangelical People's Party. After years of cooperation, they rebranded the alliance as the Green Left. In 1989, they formalized the union into a single political party. The party's electoral results throughout the 1990s and 2000s were relatively stable, and the Green Left repeatedly tried to enter government but failed to actually do so. In 2012, when the first Rutte government collapsed, the Green Left saw an opportunity to show that it was ready to govern, and it negotiated an austerity budget with the caretaker government. Unfortunately for the Green Left, the voters did not support the deal, and in the elections that year, the party lost 2/3 of its support. The young and charismatic Jesse Klaver took over the party after this defeat and rebuilt Green Left to electoral record highs, giving him the nickname of Jessias, a cute mix of Jesse as Messias, Dutch for Messiah. They entered government negotiations with the VVD, CDA, and D66 after their best ever result was achieved in 2017, but they failed when the parties couldn't agree on a migration policy. Even so, the wish to govern is still prevalent within the party, and Jesse Klaver, of course, hopes to finally realize it after the coming election. Again, as its name suggests, the Green Left is economically left-wing. The party wants to increase the minimum wage and welfare assistance by at least 20%, introduce a 2% wealth tax for so-called multimillionaires, and grant 18-year-olds 10,000 euros, which can be used as an investment in their future. Green Left also promises to abolish any kind of privatization in healthcare, make childcare free, and increase wages for healthcare workers and primary school teachers. On climate issues, the party wants to cut 60% of carbon emissions by 2030, introduce a carbon tax on aviation and agriculture, and invest 60 billion euros in the transition to green energy. The party also promises to curb institutional racism, increase international aid, and resettle more refugees via the UNHCR to the Netherlands. On European issues, the Green Left is favorable to military integration, giving the Union the possibility to tax multinationals, and a stricter approach against rule of law breaches in countries such as Poland or Hungary. A bit more on Jesse Klaver. He served in public entities as advisor in economic matters until he was elected as a junior member of parliament in 2010, where he's risen in popularity until becoming party leader in 2015. The Green Left and its predecessors have been members of the European Parliament since the Second Parliament, and became members of the European Free Alliance then. The Green Left became a member of the European Green Party and sits with the Greens Europe Free Alliance group in the European Parliament. Socialist Party, the Socialist Party in English, is a left-wing party. The Socialist Party split from Communist Unity Movement of the Netherlands in 1971 over a disagreement about the role of intellectuals in the class struggle. For 2 decades, the party failed to get to the 0.67% of the vote required to enter parliament. Under the leadership of Jan Marinissen, SP finally got its first parliamentary representation in 1994 after moving away from its original Maoist leanings. SP sought to situate itself as a genuine opposition party, most notably known for its slogan, "Vote Against, Vote SP." That's also where their logo comes from, a tomato to be thrown at the political establishment. The party's electoral support grew significantly in the early 2000s, and SP was a main proponent of the 2005 referendum campaign against the EU's proposed constitution. In the parliamentary elections of 2006, SP almost tripled its vote share, receiving 17% of the votes. After Jan Marinessen's resignation in 2008, SP eventually lost a lot of its support. In 2012, the party had a brief surge, and polling showed it to be the Netherlands' most popular party during the Euro crisis, in which many unpopular austerity measures were imposed by governing parties. However, SP failed to capitalize on their momentum in any meaningful election victory, and in the 2017 parliamentary elections saw the party fall to 9% of the vote. On economic issues, SP wants to give employees the right to a certain amount of a business's profits, increase taxes for high incomes and larger businesses, while also increasing the minimum wage to €14 an hour. The party also promises to lower the pension age to 65 from 68, replace the currently partially privatized healthcare system with a nationalized service, decrease rent prices with government intervention, and increase wages of public sector workers like teachers or nurses. The party is committed to fighting against climate change by introducing a carbon tax for heavy polluters, planting more trees across the country, and investing in public transportation, which would become free for children and elderly people. The Socialists also have a critical opinion of labor migration, while at the same time support resettling more refugees in the Netherlands. Furthermore, SP is a somewhat Eurosceptic party. It wants to replace the euro with another currency shared with the more equal economies like Germany's, organize referenda on free trade agreements made by the EU, and abolish the European Commission, calling it an undemocratic institution. The party aims to reform the EU with more independence for member states and more public involvement in decision-making. Lilian Marinessen will lead SP in this election. She's the daughter of former SP leader Jan Marinessen. She's been an active member of the party since her youth and was first elected to the City Council of Oos at the age of 16 in 2002, officially taking her seat in 2003. In 2017, she was elected to the lower house and became leader that same year. SP is not affiliated with any European political party. When they were represented in the European Parliament, they sat with the GUE-NGL group in 1999 until 2019. Partij van de Arbeid, the Labour Party, is a center-left social democratic party. PVDA is a continuation of the Social Democratic Workers' Party founded in 1894. After the Second World War in 1946, the SDAP merged with other center-left and liberal parties into the PVDA, attempting to break down the Netherlands' socially segregated politics. The party managed to govern throughout the 1950s under Prime Minister Willem Drees, constructing the Dutch welfare state in the process. For decades, PVDA governed with the CDA as its largest partner. By contrast, VVD's stances on economic policy were too incompatible with the PVDA's to co-govern comfortably. That changed in 1994, when the PVDA moved to the center, following the trend of third-way politics at the time, forming the so-called Purple Coalition governments under Prime Minister Wim Kok and the liberal VVD and D66 parties. This experiment didn't end terribly well for the PVDA. They suffered a significant defeat and lost the premiership in 2002 when the right-wing LPF party surged. Since then, the PVDA was never really able to retake the premiership, but participated twice in government as a junior partner. The last time they did so was in another purple government with the VVD in the second Rutte cabinet from 2012 to 2017. That government enforced several austerity measures which, together with the party's internal squabbles, led to the PVDA's collapse from almost a quarter of the vote in 2012 to only 6% in 2017 under the leadership of Lodewijk Asscher. He resigned in January 2021 just before the coming elections, and Lilian Ploumen succeeded him. On economic issues, PVDA wants to introduce a job guarantee for people who risk losing their jobs, assistance for people seeking work, a more flexible pension age, an increased minimum wage to 14 euros an hour, and increased taxes for millionaires, heavy polluters, and multinational corporations. The party has also promised higher wages for healthcare workers and teachers, less privatization in healthcare, free childcare, and more government investment to build affordable housing. Furthermore, the PVDA aims to legislate equal pay for men and women with the same job and welcome more refugees via the UNHCR, while still being critical of labor migration due to the exploitation of foreign workers. PVDA is a pro-European party that supports the solidification of the banking union and Europe-wide taxes for multinational corporations, a stricter approach against rule of law breaches in countries such as Poland or Hungary, and the EU taking a more significant role in fighting climate change with a Green Deal. Lilian Ploumen has been the PVDA's leader since January of this year, actually. For most of her career, she's worked with international organizations and publications focused on female empowerment. She became chairwoman of the party and also becoming Minister for Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation from 2002 until 2017 as part of the second Rutte cabinet. She was subsequently elected to the House of Representatives. PVDA sits with the S&D group and is also a member of the Party of European Socialists. They're also founding members of both organizations. ChristenUnie, or the Christian Union, is a Christian democratic party in the Netherlands. It's socially more conservative and economically more left-wing than the CDA. The Christian Union is the result of a merger of two Christian parties in 2000. The Reformed Political League, founded in 1948, and the Reformatory Political Federation, the Protestant splinter faction of the Anti-Revolutionary Party, which didn't merge into the CDA. The Christian Union is often called the government's most favored opposition party. In times of minority government, for example, the Christian Union was often ready to provide vital support to the governing coalition. The party itself has also governed twice, during the Fourth Balkenende government from 2007 to 2010, and in the current third Rutte government since 2017, which fell this January. Despite the Christian Union being a relatively small party, it has a very large electorate in the so-called Bible Belt, which runs diagonally through the Netherlands, where CU is the strongest party in several municipalities. On economic policy, the Christian Union is actually more of a center-left party. It proposes a higher minimum wage, a higher state pension, and higher social benefits while increasing taxes on the wealthy and heavy polluters. The Christian Union also wants significantly increased government investment in affordable housing, less privatization in healthcare, and the implementation of a green energy transition so the Netherlands cuts 55% of its current carbon emissions by 2030. On social issues, however, the Christian Union has a mix of conservative and progressive policies. The party staunchly defends the current freedom of education, which allows any kinds of religious schools to be fully government-funded. The party also wants to make birth control pills free so less women opt for abortion, and aims for the gradual abolition of prostitution, calling the industry modern slavery. The Christian Union also supports a more generous policy towards refugees and a more ambitious policy to fight climate change. The Christian Union is slightly Eurosceptic. It supports EU membership, but wants more control for national parliaments in European decision-making. It also would like the European Union to solely focus on climate change, the digital economy, migration, and geopolitics. The party's staunchly against a common European debt and wants to establish a procedure to kick countries out of the Eurozone if they don't follow the EMU rules. Gert-Jan Segers, a political scientist and Christian missionary, leads the CU. He worked for many years in Egypt and returned to be the chairman of the Scientific Institute of the Christian Union. Since 2012, he's been a member of the House of Representatives, becoming party leader in 2015. Before 2001, he was a member of the now-defunct Reformatory Political Federation, a Protestant party which was absorbed by the CU in 2001. Ahead of the European elections, CU still runs in a common list with the SGP, both of which are members of the Christian fundamentalist European Christian Political Movement, the ECPM. In the European Parliament, has most recently sat with the EPP. Partij voor de Dieren, the Party for the Animals, is a left-wing environmentalist animal rights party. It's the most successful animal rights party in Europe, having representation in both the national parliaments and in the European Parliament. Founded in 2002, PVDD did not see any electoral success until 2006, when they became the first animal rights party in the world to win representation in Parliament. Since then, they've maintained their small but constant presence. The Party for the Animals never managed, however, to enter government in their 15-year tenure in Parliament. That's because the party is very hesitant to negotiate with other parties. Marianne Thieme, the PVDD's leader from 2002 until 2019, always said that, quote, one should not compromise on one's ideals. Contrary to most Green parties, PVDD focuses more on the well-being of animals first and environmental issues second. They want the government to reduce meat consumption overall and make increased restrictions on keeping livestock while also eliminating animal testing, sports, circuses, and hunting. The party seeks to ban zoos and abolish the pet tax. Overall, they advocate for the Constitution to recognize the rights of animals. In other fields, the party also supports regulations that would compel cities to use renewable energy, increasing taxes on the use of airplanes, a global climate agreement, halting subsidies of biomass energy, organic food in schools, and halting the use of pesticides. Economically, the party believes in an interventionist model. They want a flexible pension age, an increase in measures to stop tax evasion, the pardoning of student loans, and the implementation of basic income policies and free childcare. This party is somewhat Eurosceptic. In the past, it's advocated for the abolition of the euro and the return to the guilder, the country's old currency. Nowadays, the party advocates for preparing exit strategies in case of a new euro crisis, which would lead to a possible north-south currency split. Furthermore, it opposes greater EU integration. In their eyes, EU enlargement can't happen until the Union's political system is overhauled and heavily democratized. Esther Ouwehand leads the Party for the Animals in this election. Although she was highly successful in the private sector in the field of marketing, she joined the party in 2002 and quickly rose through the ranks, co-writing the party's 2006 program and even getting elected to parliament that same year. She remained an MP until 2015, when she resigned due to health issues, but resumed her position a year later. She became leader in 2019 after co-founder Marianne Thieme resigned from parliament. The Party for the Animals is among the founders of Animal Politics EU, and ever since 2014, they've sat with the GUE-NGL group. FiftyPlus, or 50Plus in English, is a centrist political party which claims to represent the interests of pensioners and senior citizens of the Netherlands, hence their name. The party was founded in 2009, and among their founders was former senator for PVDA and councillor for the now-dissolved Livable Netherlands, Jan Nagel. It was originally established under the name Party for Justice, Decisiveness and Progress, and then Independent Elderly and Children Union. It didn't run in the 2010 general election, but it did run in the 2012 parliamentary election under its current name, receiving 2 seats in the lower house of parliament. The party quickly gained traction in opinion polls when cuts to healthcare and an increase of the pension age were implemented. However, the party never solidified their high polling numbers due to several missteps of their former leader, Henk Krol, and general party infighting. In 2020, the party split over disagreements about the electoral list. Then leader Henk Krol left 50Plus and started his own party. The party also lost their first and only MEP, who then joined the CDA. On economic issues, 50Plus focuses on issues that impact the elderly. The party wants to lower the pension age back to 65 and compensate the claimed 20% loss in purchasing power for pensioners by increasing state pensions. 50Plus also wants to invest heavily in healthcare, mostly in care for elderly people. On social issues, the party wants to broaden the current legislation on euthanasia by also allowing it for people who deem their life as completed instead of only for chronically ill people. Furthermore, 50Plus is a strong proponent of implementing several elements of direct democracy, while also increasing the electoral threshold to 3%. This is pretty remarkable for a party whose support has hovered just around 3% in the last parliamentary election. On European issues, 50Plus opposes EU enlargement, further EU integration, and any new bailouts to other Eurozone countries. 50Plus's leader is Leandre For most of her life, she's worked as a nurse and activist for the care of the elderly, eventually landing a post as administrator of ANBO, an organization that represents the elderly. She eventually ran for the Werden City Council with D66 in 2006, where she was elected. She then left D66 to join Progressief Werden, a local coalition of the Labour Party and the GreenLinks. She didn't get elected, but she became a respected figure inside the coalition. In 2020, though, she was not a member. FiftyPlus's leadership asked her to run for the position of leader, which she won with the support of over half of the party's militancy. FiftyPlus managed to elect an MEP in the 2019 elections and joined the EPP group. That MEP, however, left the party in 2020, taking away their representation in the European Parliament. Staatskundig Hervormerde Partij, the Reformed Political Party, is a right-wing Christian democratic party based on Orthodox Calvinist teachings. It was founded in 1918 by dissidents of the Anti-Revolutionary Party, who were against the party allowing female suffrage and supporting a Catholic becoming prime minister. Their leader at the time, Pastor Herk Kersten, joined parliament in 1922 and was among the opposition looking to undermine Catholic causes. During the following years, they retained a small parliamentary contingency until World War II, where they took a pro-German stance, mostly so that the occupiers would allow them to keep their publications. After the war, Kersten was permanently banned from joining parliament ever again. As the years went by, more moderate party leaders took over and allowed it to slowly grow, eventually entering the Senate and the European Parliament. A quick point of interest. Women were allowed neither in the party's management nor to run for public office. That ban, however, was lifted in 2006, and they currently have elected female representatives. Reflecting their orthodox views, even their website is closed on Sundays. On economic issues, the SGP wants to increase child benefits while adding a €1,000 bonus for fourth children, give employees the right to not be disturbed on Sundays by their employers, and increase healthcare workers' wages. The party also favors a tax system in which couples would pay tax on the basis of their average income. On social issues, the SGP is against abortion, the legalization of hard or soft drugs, and mandatory vaccinations. According to the party, when granting asylum to refugees, Christians should be prioritized. When speaking about Islam, the party thinks one should be cautious for possible dangers. The SGP is also a pro-Israel party. It wants to ban organizations that call for the boycott of Israeli products and relocate the Dutch embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. On European issues, the SGP is somewhat Eurosceptic. The party wants a flexible European Union in which member states can choose which kind of European cooperations they would like to participate in, while also working out possible alternatives to the common euro currency, which the SGP deems unsustainable. The SGP's leader is Kees van der Staaij. He's worked many different jobs for many years in the Council of the State, an advisory body to the government and parliament, until he was elected to the House of Representatives in 1998. This election isn't his first time as leader, as he's already led the SGP on two separate occasions, once in 2010 and the other in 2012. For the European elections, SGP runs a common list with the CU, both of which are members of the Christian fundamentalist European Christian political movement. In the European Parliament, the alliance has found itself within groups such as the Non-Inscrits, Europe of Nations, Independence for Europe of Nations, Europe of Democracies and Diversities, Independence Democracy, EFD, and ECR since 2014. Denk, which actually means think in Dutch as well as balance in Turkish, is a political party that aims to represent Middle Eastern, North African, and Turkish communities in the Netherlands, namely people of Turkish and Moroccan descent. The party was founded in 2014. Back then, founders Tunahan Kuzu and Selçuk Öztürk, who were MPs of the center-left PVDA, found themselves in a conflict with Minister of Social Affairs Lodewijk Asscher, who was also from the PVDA. This conflict, which revolved around Asscher's critique of Turkish organizations that interfered in the integration of Turkish immigrants, ended in Kuzu and Öztürk leaving the party and starting one of their own, Denk. This party gained traction among Dutch citizens of Turkish, Moroccan, and generally Islamic, Middle Eastern, and North African descent. In 2017, the party received around 2% of the vote, giving them 3 seats. In 2020, the 3 MPs had a conflict, resulting in Öztürk announcing his departure from politics, Kuzu resigning as party leader, and Azarkan succeeding him. Denk wants to curb racism and discrimination by investing €1 billion into a dedicated Ministry of Inclusivity, a racism register that bars people convicted of racist offenses from getting civil service jobs and related assistance to the police. They also support making the holiday tradition of Black Pete illegal. The party also proposes flexible public holidays so that people of non-Christian religions can take days off for their own holidays. The party also wants to increase the legal age to buy alcohol from 18 to 21, increase healthcare workers and teachers' wages, maintain the current pension age, increase the minimum wage, recognize statehood of Palestine, and introduce lifelong sentences for child predators. Concerning the European Union, Denk supports Dutch membership of both the Union and the Eurozone. Farid Azarkan will lead Denk. He's worked in both public and private sectors until 2017 when he was elected to the House of Representatives. He entered a conflict with the party's leadership due to his campaigning tactics, but ultimately secured the position of leader in 2020. Denk has no formal ties to any European political group or party. Forum voor Democratie, the Forum for Democracy, is a national conservative party. This party was born as a think tank that campaigned against the 2016 EU-Ukraine Association Agreement in a referendum mostly out of principle against expanding the Union. The eventual rejection of the agreement encouraged leader Thierry Baudet to turn the think tank into a political party to run in the 2017 general election. This new party won 2 seats and enjoyed a quick rise in the polls, which helped them elect 3 MEPs in the 2019 European election while gaining nearly 11% of the votes, also being the most voted for party in the Senate elections that year. In 2020, however, infighting within the party led to a steady loss of support. Ironically, members criticized the lack of democracy within the party's structure, while others criticized people close to Baudet and the party's youth wing, accusing them of racism and anti-Semitism. This ended in a surprise leadership election in which Baudet still won. However, this ultimately caused a split in which high-ranking officials, including councillors, senators, and MEPs, left the party. FVD wants to lower taxes drastically, lower the pension age back to 65 years, and reintroduce a higher motor speedway limit of 130 kilometers an hour, in spite of pollution regulations. The party also wants to decrease defense spending to 2% of GDP, cut all government spending on public service broadcasting, and scrap further legislation against climate change on the basis that there, quote, is no climate crisis. FVD furthermore advocates significantly decreased immigration levels, stimulating immigrants to return to their home countries, and ending Dutch membership of the European Union. It also wants to introduce a law which would legally defend Dutch cultural traditions. Regarding the current public health crisis, FVD wants to abolish all lockdown measures immediately, stating that the danger of the pandemic is exaggerated. The party is still led by its founder, Thierry Baudet. An academic for most of his life, he eventually entered politics to reject European intervention in Crimea. He eventually became an MP in 2017 and secured the leadership once again, but at the cost of many important party figures leaving due to his style and behavior. Since entering the European Parliament in 2019, FVD joined both the ECR party and group.